John the Evangelist is the name traditionally given to the author of the Gospel of John. Christians have traditionally identified him with John the Apostle, John of Patmos, and John the Presbyter, though this has been disputed by modern scholars. Gospel of John. The word evangelist means writer of the gospel, from the Greek word for gospel, epsilon alpha gamma epsilon lambda iota omicron nu. The Gospel of John refers to an otherwise unnamed disciple whom Jesus loved, who bore witness to and wrote the Gospel's message. The author of the Gospel of John seemed interested in maintaining the internal anonymity of the author's identity, though interpreting the Gospel in the light of the Synoptic Gospels and considering that the author names both Peter and James. It has generally been accepted that the author either was the Apostle John or was pretending to be. Christian tradition says that John the Evangelist was John the Apostle. The Apostle John was a historical figure, one of the pillars of the Jerusalem church after Jesus' death. He was one of the original 12 apostles and is thought to be the only one to have lived into old age and not be killed for his faith. John is associated with the city of Ephesus, where he is said to have lived and been buried. Some believe that he was exiled to the Aegean island of Patmos, where he wrote the book of Revelation. However, this is a matter of debate, with some attributing the authorship of Revelation to another man, called John of Patmos, to John the Presbyter. Orthodox Roman Catholic scholarship, most Protestant churches, and the entire Eastern Orthodox Church attribute all of the Johannine literature to the same individual, the Holy Apostle and Evangelist, John the theologian, whom it identifies with the beloved disciple in the Gospel of John. Authorship of the Johannine works. The authorship of the Johannine works has been debated by scholars since at least the 2nd century AD. The main debate centers on who authored the writings, and which of the writings, if any, can be ascribed to a common author. Orthodox tradition attributes all the books to John the Apostle. In the 6th century, the Decretum Gelationum argued that 2nd and 3rd John have a separate author known as John, a priest. Historical criticism rejects the view that John the Apostle authored any of these works. Many modern scholars conclude that the Apostle John wrote none of these works, although others, notably J. A. T. Robinson, F. F. Bruce, Leon Morris, and Martin Hengel, hold the Apostle to be behind at least some, in particular the Gospel. There may have been a single author for the Gospel and the 3 epistles. Some scholars conclude the author of the epistles was different from that of the Gospel, although all 4 works probably originated from the same community. The Gospel and epistles traditionally and plausibly came from Ephesus, c. 90 to 110, although some scholars argue for an origin in Syria. In the case of Revelation, many modern scholars agree that it was written by a separate author, John of Patmos, c. 95, with some parts possibly dating to Nero's reign in the early 60s. Feast Day. The feast day of St. John in the Roman Catholic Church, which calls him St. John, Apostle and Evangelist, and in the Anglican Communion and Lutheran calendars, which call him John, Apostle and Evangelist, is on the 27th of December, the 3rd day of Christmastide. In the Tridentine calendar he was commemorated also in each of the following days up to and including the 3rd of January, the octave of the 27th of December feast. This octave was abolished by Pope Pius XII in 1955. The traditional liturgical color is white. In art, John the Evangelist is usually depicted as a young man. In Christian art, John is symbolically represented by an eagle, one of the creatures envisioned by Ezekiel and in the Revelation to John. The use of the chalice as a symbol for John is sometimes interpreted with reference to the Last Supper. Another explanation is to be found in the words of Christ to John and James, "My chalice indeed you shall drink." According to some authorities, this symbol was not adopted until the 13th century. The painting St. John the Evangelist by Domenico Zampieri was auctioned in London in December 2009 for an estimated $16.5 million. It sold for £9,225,250. It is a painting by the Italian Baroque painter Zampieri, and it was on display in the National Gallery, London, on loan from a private collection. John the Evangelist is depicted as a young man accompanied by his traditional symbol, the eagle, and two putti. His gaze is directed upwards towards God as he received the inspiration for his gospel, emphasized by the strong chiaroscuro light bearing down upon him. This was typical of the artist's style, continuing in the manner of late Raphael and his own master Annibale Carracci. The composition is said to have been inspired by classical sculpture, with some commentators pointing specifically to the Laocoon. This is also evident in Domenichino's other large-scale treatments of the subject, such as Madonna and Child with the Saints, John the Evangelist, and Petronius and the Pendentive in the Church of Sant'Andrea della Vale. The painting also includes an example of the artist's landscape painting, an aspect of his work that was particularly influential on the likes of Claude Lorraine and Nicolas Poussin. This element of the work was originally more compressed into the right-hand section of the canvas, the architecture taking precedence. However, Domenichino reconsidered this layout and overpainted an extension of the landscape onto the wall. Other alterations are also visible in the books, the hand of the right putto and the larger hill of the landscape gallery. John the Evangelist